Okay, so this is Unit 2, Part 2, where we actually get into playing the D progression for the first time. You should have the red and white guitar book out and open to page 8 as we go over this together. Okay, so on page 8 you've got the 3 chord diagrams for the D progression. D is the 1 chord, G is the 4 chord, and A7 is what we call the 5-7 chord. So when you play these in order, 1, 2, 3, and then finish back where we started with D, that's called the D progression. So you're learning 3 chords within one progression here on page 8. All right, so we talked in the last lesson about how to read that chord diagram. So if you're looking at the vertical lines as the strings and the horizontal lines as the fret, you'll see that the D chord looks a lot like an upside down triangle. You're going to take your first finger, put it on the 3rd string, 2nd fret. You're going to take your middle finger, finger number 2, and you're going to put it on first string, 2nd fret. And then your 3rd finger, your ring finger, is going to hook down 2nd string, 3rd fret. So it ends up looking kind of like an upside down triangle when you play it. The other thing I want you to notice is on top of the chord diagram there's some X's and O's. And we're not starting a game of tic-tac-toe. Those actually tell you whether or not to play the open strings. You'll see here there's 3 strings that don't have any fingers on them. If there's a 0 above that string, it means you strum it open. And if there's an X, it means that string does not get strummed. So in the case of the D chord, the upside down triangle, you're going to hook your finger in starting at the 5th string and strum all 5 strings while missing your low E. Low E is not part of the D chord. Okay? Notice my fingers up top here are really curved around and my thumb is way behind. Okay? I'm getting a really good squeeze on the neck of the guitar and I'm being very careful not to have my fingers collapse so that they're touching other strings. Because if they're accidentally touching other strings when I play, you get a really dead sound. So I'm going to curve my fingers, press them into the fingerboard, and use my thumb behind to squeeze so I can really press and get a good ring from my D chord. Okay, pause the video for a moment and try and get that D chord set and strum it 12 times. After you've done that, let's try and see if we can use the chord chart to get the G. Okay, the G is a little bit of a stretch, so be patient, you'll get it. First finger goes on your 5th string, 2nd fret. Your 2nd finger, your middle finger, goes on your 6th string, 3rd fret. And then you can choose here whether or not you want to use your 3rd or 4th finger. The book asks you to use your 3rd finger on the 1st string, 3rd fret. I prefer to use my pinky finger because I find it to be less of a stretch. It's more comfortable here. My pinky's strong enough to play this chord. So you'll have to try both ways. Decide if you like it better this way or this way. Okay? The G is a 6-string strum. You use all strings. And I'm still really curved in my left hand. Okay, I'm not collapsing down. Pause the video again and try and practice strumming that G chord 12 times. See if you can get a really good sound. Lastly, we have our A7 chord. There's only 2 fingers needed for this one. It's 1st finger, 4th string, 2nd fret, and then your middle finger, 2nd string, 2nd fret. You're going to strum the whole guitar for this one as well. And that's called our A7 chord. Okay. Pause the video again and practice that A7 chord 12 times. Get a really good curve in your hand, because if your fingers go flat, you'll get some dead sounds. Once you're comfortable strumming those 3 chords individually, we want to put them together in a progression. And the way I like to do that is what I call a chord progression warm-up. And the way we do that, we start on D, and we'll start with just 1 strum of each chord, giving us 3 beats to change. So it sounds kind of like this. D, rest, rest, rest. G, rest, rest, rest. A7, rest, rest, rest. D. That's the first round. So you're really practicing moving your fingers from one chord to another and giving yourself some time to do that. Once you're comfortable with that, you can go to round 2, which is 2 strums, 2 beats to change. G, G, A7, D, D. If you can do that, and it might take some practice, that's okay, then you go to the third round. D, 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 G, 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 A7, D. If you can do it with only 1 beat to change, then you can finally go on to the full progression, the 4th round, which is where you strum each chord 4 times with no beats to change. You have a very quick switch. And that's what we call the chord progression warm-up, or in this case, the D progression warm-up. At this point, I want you to pause, practice these 3 chords, practice transitioning back and forth, which that's really the hardest part. That'll take some time and some practice, and you'll need to develop some muscle memory in order to do that. And then the next assignment is to strum along with the folk songs on page 10 and 11. There's 5 of them there that use these 3 chords. Skip to My Lou, He's Got the Whole World in His Hands, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, Michael Row the Boat Ashore, and Oh Susanna. And again, you're looking for the chord symbols for the alphabet letters that are written above the melody and lyrics. Sing along with these. It'll help you keep your spot. I realize that these aren't the kinds of songs that you really love to play. It's not the stuff that you listen to on the radio, but they're folk songs. A lot of people know them. They're short, and so they're a good place to start. So do a little bit of practice with these today, and that'll allow us to move on to some pop and rock stuff that you're more familiar with very soon. Okay. Once you've checked in with Mrs. Meeker about these chords, the chord progression, and the folk songs, then that'll be your chance to choose a pop or a rock song to learn that uses the key of D, and she'll show you what your options are for that. And then you'll also be doing a chord progression quiz where you'll strum the D progression from memory, 4 strums of each, just like this. Doesn't have to be that fast, but you should be able to show that you know all 3 chords and that you can switch between them smoothly and quickly. Okay, good luck.